Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Palacpac. I'm going to study the methods of forensics of identification. First is the anthropology. The forensics anthropology can be described as an analysis of human remains for the methodological purpose of establishing the identity. The main reason to study about the anthropology to uh, to particular with the investigation resulting of the homicide, unexplained natural deaths, accidents na mass, uh, fatalities of the criminal events, and multi-death. All of this is studying the anthropology. And the main role of anthropology is the focus of applying the detailed knowledge of the development of morphology and the variation of the human body as an aid of establishing the intent of refusing person of identification like skeletal or developmental age or biological age and the living structure and ancestry or racial identification. The stage of forensic human identification. First is the minimum number of individuals or MNI that presents the accurate of qualifications of the number of the individuals within the assembly of the stage of individualization of the process of MNI represents of the assemblage in the paramount. Sex determination. The sex determinations, the methods of the age of structure of determination or sex, or dependent determining the biological sex of individuals. The first component of individualizing sex determinations is important to know the skeletal or bone or female and to know the age of the bone. And the third stage of forensic human is the age of determination. The determination of the chronological age of an individual is one of the more challenging areas of the forensic or anthropological inquiry or particular of the adulthood has been reached. Next one is stature. In the majority of an case in the calculation of the living weight of the individual from skeletal remain based on the fact and the overall structure corrected with the long bone length assuming of equality of the body. And the next one is the markers of personality of identity. This is a supplementary set of the characteristic of different first or primary factors of sex, age, structure, and costing to know if the bone have a development through a chance, incident, or of their culture. The next one is the individualizing the characteristic of normal human. There have four characteristics of the first, the pathological coordination of the study, of the assessment of the pathological variation of the traumatic lesion of the provide strong evidence as a aid of the individual like birthmarks, facial scars, tissues or missing limbs or etc. The second one is a cultural modification. It's all about the class of evidence of includes surgical evidence, intervention in the body modification like tattoos, changing of the face like that, and the confirmation of the personal identity. Positive or confirmed identity. First is this occurs when two sets of data are compared enough of specific markers found in the conclude that the two sets of records are probably derived from the same individual. And the positive. This is occurs when the several individuals are considered and although no single factors or justifies that establishment of identity. The fourth one is the exclusion. The arise when the disease of the identification category such as a male or female has been identified.
The second one methods of the forensic identification is the forensics of odontology. The abstract. Forensic odontology is a branch of the forensic uses the skill of the dentist personal identification during mass calamities of the crime. Uh, the forensic odontology used the purpose of handling examination and the evaluation of dental evidence which will be presented into the interest of justice. First, the identification. Plays an important role when the identification plays an important role when the identification remains of the disease in the skeletonized, decomposed, burned, or dismembered as an individualized visual of the fingerprint. We have four types of dental identification. First, the positive identification. An in-mortem and the post-mortem data established into the same individual. And the second one, the possible identification. And the ante-mortem, the post-mortem data have a few consistent features. The difficult establishment of identity. The third one is insufficient evidence that data is not enough from the conclusion. And the fourth one, in the conclusion, the ante-mortem data, the post-mortem are clearly by consistent.
Then the determination of the species. It comes to a picture when the evidence found at the scenes of the crime is a fragment of the mandible of the just single tooth. And DNA analysis is a forensic dentistry. Is the simple form of DNA analysis is the isolated from the biological and the material such as blood, semen, hair, roots, and tissues of teeth, bone, and saliva. First is the specimen selection. Is the decompose the mortem tissue, although the DNA in the undergoes the progress of the fragmentation. First examination of the dental forensic dentistry. First is saliva. It's a major source of DNA because it contains the slonged epithelial cells from the oral. Second one, it's a teeth. With the act of major source of the DNA's ability to its hand to undergo change. In the facial reconstruction and the facial superfusion is all about the changing the face or putting of eyeglass. Age of imitation based of dental data, the needs of the age determination has increased in the recent years. For age of estimation of has increased in the recent year because there's an increase in the number of identified categories. There have two types of types of dental aging technique. First is the developmental changes. It's all about the human definition while the teeth are growing and the emerging the oral activity. And the degenerative changes. The occur once the teeth have erupted and begun to wear down. The first, the developmental changes. The hardest tissue formation. Foot formation begins at very early stage of life by 6 months, and the sequence of formation and eruption of the teeth would give a precise age of estimation of method. The dental eruption. Human dentition of two eruptions, the stage to access the age of unknown individual where we can compare the postmortem and the radiographs of individuals. And the third, moral eruptions. This moral emergence tends to the ground by the 17 to 19 years old of age. And the dental measurements. This techniques was an alternative to a qualitative assessments where the length of the tooth measured. To the degenerative changes that occurs when the teeth have erupted to begin to wear down. There's a initiative connection between tooth where the age as the does more where tend to be older. The third methods that I will discuss, the identification of forensic of the portrait parent. The portrait parent came from the French by wood. The French wood means speaking of the skinness, also defined um, as a rigorous system for verbal description of for physical characteristics of the human body. And the portrait parent is also known as the same with the anthropometry in the distortion of the status. Based on the DNA evidence and the others of the fingerprint became the dominant which used the law enforcement, the advancement of the vertilage of anthropometry, a new typological description for eyes, ears, nose, lips, on foreheads, and the photographic description of the definite to be found of the body such as scratch, tattoos, a nose, or and etc. The quadrillion card includes the prisoner's eyes, nose, lips, and the color of the intimate leaf.
And the next identification of forensic of identification methods is the anthropometry. Anthropometry is were designed by the Alphonse Bertillon, began in the 1980 and lasted approximately 20 years before you using repeat by fingerprint in identification. The father of the Abtens, which is the Louisa Bertillon, helped him to secure a job as the clerk and the focus in the research about the repeat in offenders as a offense of Bertillon. The purpose of this method of the identification in 1978 using the anthropological body measurement, which is the help of the father, he was successfully developed in the year of 1982. I think his system of consisted of using a caliper and in the measuring device is take of a specific body of the dimension alpha is recorded in physical description of the person such as the hair and eye color, also includes the tattoos and scars in the year of 1987. In the United Skaters adopt the anthropometry and the 1894 for the Great Virgin after the words of the fingerprinting of the techniques. We are the development of the comparison of the purpose and the comparison of the fingerprints and the anthropometry. Fingerprints means persons and the anthropometry means a needed of metric or scale.
Okay, let's talk about the another methods of the identification. The DNA fingerprint. Now, the DNA fingerprint was invented on 1984 by Professor Sir Alec Jeffreys. After he had released, you could detect the variation in human DNA in form of these minicells. The DNA is a form of the fingerprinting technique that simultaneously detects the lots of the minicells that come to produce the pattern of unique to individual. This is a fingerprint. The probability of having two people with the same of DNA, the fingerprint that are not identical in twins in a very small. DNA is also fingerprinting as only transformed criminal forensic and judicial system in around the world, but he has also revolutionized in fields of biology ranging from the evolutionary of studies to a cancer and the DNA profiling. The modern day of the DNA profiling is also called a STR analysis and release the on microsatellites rather than the mini satellites used in the DNA fingerprinting. Microsatellites or short or tandem repeats STR or S are the shorter relatives of mini satellites, usually 2 to 5 bases pairs long. Like mini satellites, they are repeated many times through the humans. Someone, for example, ta 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 ta. And let's talk about the solving crime. The DNA profiles are very useful in the forensic because only a tiny sample of human material left behind after the crime may be sufficient or identify someone. In the UK, the complete DNA profile consists on the STR sequence plus the sex determiner to confirm the profile in the form of man or woman. All new profiles includes the additional 5 STR sequence to provide consistency across the borders in Europe. In the USA, the Federal Bureau of Investigation or FBI recommended the STR sequence tested. Many states are increasing the number of STR sequence tested and enable more efficient investigation across the borders. How much made between a crime scene profile and the individual profile in the identify the possible suspect, how much made between different crime scene profiles indicates a repeat offender at work. The police many use the DNA to support of the other evidence to help prosecute someone for a crime. Complete DNA profiles give very reliable matches and may provide a strong evidence and suspect is a guilty or innocence of a crime. Let's talk about the linking blood or relatives. You get half of your DNA, your mother, and half for your father. The STRs are therefore passed down from the parents to their children. The DNA profiling can be used to help confirm whether two people are related to one or another in commonly used provide evidence that someone is or not the biological parent of a child. DNA profiling can also be used to identify the victims or crime major of disaster and help bring separated families back together. And DNA profiling is a highly success and in a positive rate. And then let's talk about the last methods of the forensic identification, which is the forensic serology. Forensic serology is the application of the study of blood, semen, saliva, and other body fluids to legal matters that field are generally is comprised of the detection of seminal stain or blood typing of ABO and secretor of status and DNA typing. There are serology section of the forensic laboratory may deal of or all of the following. First is the blood typing. And the second one is a characterization of unknown stains. And the third is blood spatter analysis from crime reconstruction and the paternity of testing. And the six, the semen identification in sexual assault cases. And the last is the DNA typing of identification in victims and the suspect. The forensic serology is connected into the DNA fingerprinting. First, the blood typing. Blood typing uh, antigens. On the surface of the red blood cells or molecules, proteins called the antigens. The antigens allows the living system to recognize the foreign biological substance such as interaction agents and the uh, allergies. The second one, the distribution of blood types of the US. A blood type of the 40% or 42% is the most common in the among the cousin in the Europe descent. The blood type B, the 10 to 12% is the most common in African American in the Thai Asians, which is as the AB blood type. The 3 to 5% is the most common in the Japanese and Chinese populations. In the blood type O, or the 43% and the 45%, the most common among the indigenous people in the Latin American.
Here's the example of blood typing. The blood typing involves the determination of the antigens, the presence or an individual of a RBCS. The type A blood contain a antigen or RBC. The type B is a blood B or antigen RBC. And the blood type AB that contain the A and B antigens. And the blood type O is contains the A or B antigens. RH for blood contain the RH antigens, and the RH blood no RH antigens. Let's move on to the characterize of the blood. Class, species, type, disease, RH factor, and antigens. The individual is the DNA. Projected blood stain analysis. The two important determination. First is director of the spatter. Second one is angle of impact with the surface. And the blood stain analysis. The categories of blood stains first is passive or dripping, and the transfer or smearing, and the projected is projected blood stains occur in the shooting, trauma from the blunt weapons, hacking, beating, and or slashing attacks. And the forensic characteristics of semen. Many of crime involved in sexual assault, a forensic investigation may need to search for semen stains of crime scene. Bedding, clothing, towels, carpet, visions, vehicle seats, or etc. This is example of the can expose the semen. And the seminal fluids contains is the water, spermatozoa, enzymes, and organic salts. And the presumptive test to know if that semen is true, UV light or fluorescent under UV light. And the last one is saliva. The saliva is a mixture of many components of 99% of water. Mucin, protein helps is the swallowing, analyze or enzyme to help digest carbohydrate, and the vocal cells and good source of DNA. So all of that is the methods of the forensic identification.